Superhumanize. Accelerated evolution.
Welcome to the Superhumanize podcast. Today, we have a truly special guest who has transformed the lives of so many through her profound understanding of the law of attraction and manifestation. Have you ever felt like there's more to life than meets the eye and that your thoughts and intention could shape your reality? Our guest, Emma Mumford, also known as the Spiritual Queen, is the UK's leading voice in manifestation and law of attraction. She's a best-selling author and the host of the #1 spirituality podcast on iTunes, Spiritual Queen's Badass Podcast. Emma has dedicated her life to helping others break free from limiting beliefs and create an abundant reality. Emma's journey from savvy savings expert to spiritual leader is truly inspiring. After overcoming personal hardships, she discovered the power of manifestation and has since been guiding others to unlock their potential and attract their dreams with ease. In today's episode, we explore Emma's pivotal moments of self-discovery, her insights into the true essence of manifestation, and how redefining wealth and abundance can transform our lives. We also talk about the intersections of quantum physics, neuroplasticity, and manifestation, and discuss how to navigate the ethical dimensions of this powerful practice. Emma, welcome to the Superhumanize podcast. I am so glad I will get to spend time with you today.
Thank you so much for having me, Ariane. I'm excited to talk today.
Me too. Manifestation is one of my favorite topics, not only to talk about, but also something that is a very important and deep practice for me. And I'm really curious, Emma, you are considered a leading manifestation expert in the UK, in the world. Actually, you are from the UK. And I would like to know, was there a pivotal moment of self-discovery somewhere along the way that also led you down this path on where you are right now on your journey in life? And could you share this turning point with us and how it guided you?
Yeah, so I always think there's 2 points to this journey. There's 2012 when I started my first business, which is very different to what you see me do today. And although that wasn't a spiritual awakening and I didn't know about the law of attraction at that point, I do think that was such a pivotal moment in my journey to get me onto my path. So in 2016 is when I discovered the law of attraction and came across manifestation. And at that point in my life, I was feeling extremely depressed. I had anxiety. I'd had it all throughout the time period I'll go through in a second. And I was at the end of my second not so great relationship. And I was really at a sticking point at this part where I was like, I'm either going to have to take my life or I'm going to have to save my life. And for me, I knew that I didn't want to end my life, but I knew that it got so bad at that point that something had to give. And I'd look around me and see that people were happy and they experienced joy and fulfillment in their life. And I thought, if it's possible for them, it has to be possible for me somehow. Even though I don't know how to be happy, I don't know how to get to that place, it must be possible. So there was definitely a drive within me to carry on and to make a happy life for myself in whatever way that looked like. But going backwards a little bit, to 2012 is when I had my first sort of awakening of some sorts. And at this time, I was in my first not so great relationship. I was about 18, 19 years old. I was working in the bank, so I'd got into corporate banking, which was something that I never saw myself doing. Definitely was not on the aspiration list, but it just happened. It just fell into that role. And I was starting to experience anxiety and panic attacks and depression at that point. And I couldn't really work out why, but I thought maybe the job is stressful. Obviously, I'm putting people in debt every day. It's not really a positive environment to be in, day out. And to make that anxiety worse, I actually ended up taking out £7,000 worth of debt from my ex because we'd had debt collectors and bailiffs at the door. And I was like, I get preferential rates at the bank, so why don't I just take out a loan? We'll get those people off our backs and you can pay it off. So you can guess what happened shortly after I took out that loan. We broke up, and he still to this day has never paid a single penny of that loan. So there's me at 19 years old. I've got all this debt that's now legally in my name, so I have to clear it. And I've gone through this breakup. I'm having to like move home back to my parents. It was just a total mess, to say the least. And I couldn't go to the banking job anymore either because I was having panic attacks every time I'd go to work. My depression was getting deeper and deeper. So it was just not a healthy environment to go every day and be surrounded by people, put people in debt, be in debt myself. It was just a really triggering environment. And I knew that wasn't for me. Like, I wanted to help people. I didn't want to put them in debt and make their financial situations worse, even though credit can help people as well. And there are benefits to it. It didn't really help my mindset and where I was at that time. So I left that role and I just got a part-time job to kind of start paying off the debt, get myself back on track. And that's when I found something called extreme couponing, which I know a lot of people know about, or maybe are like, what on earth is this? But at the time, it was like not spoken about at all here in the UK. It was a very taboo subject. And I thought, if all these Americans can save all this money and have all these huge stockpiles and get out of debt, surely I can do this. Like, surely if I could just save on all these things, that would help me get out of debt quicker. So within 6 months, I became obsessed with it, and it became a really positive outlet to put my energy into and focus on during that really tough time. And my friends were saying to me, like, Emma, you should really set up a Facebook page and help people do this. You're really good at it. And of course, as we all do, I was like, but who am I to do that? Who am I to start talking about money saving and couponing? So after a few months of pressure from my friends, I did set a Facebook group up. It was called, and still is, Extreme Couponing and Deals UK. And it was really wild because in those first 6 months of having that page, it just absolutely blew up. We had over 100,000 followers at that point. I was being invited on national TV. I had all the press calling me coupon queen. So it was just a really wild time to go from sat in the toilets of the bank having panic attacks, being in debt, to, oh my God, I have a business and I really didn't expect this. And I just wanted to help people. And now people are coming to me for that help, which was almost turning that negative of putting people into debt into now helping them get out of debt and be positive and be good with their finances and their money. So it was a really nice shift. So I ran that business for 6 years. I sold it in 2018. And obviously, fast forward to that 2016 point where I had the spiritual awakening. Although from the outside, people probably would look at my life and say, Emma, what have you got to be sad about? You've got a flat you live in with your boyfriend, you've got a successful 6-figure business, you're going on TV. What is there to be sad about? But of course, the anxiety and depression, because as much as I was trying to tackle it with traditional therapy and counseling, nothing was getting to the root, nothing was getting to the core. So it was always just there in the background, getting worse and worse as I was going through these toxic relationships. And really, it all came to a head in 2016 when I had my spiritual awakening, which was triggered by that breakup of the second relationship. I first came across law of attraction then, and I always joke that the law of attraction almost finds you. You don't find it, it finds you. And I just kept saying the word everywhere, and I didn't really know what it meant. I thought maybe it's attracting a relationship. Like, what does it mean, attraction? And then I found videos from like Louise Hay, for example, and I really connected to that. And she was talking about manifestation. So it was almost like a remembering. It wasn't like, oh, I'm learning something new here. It was like, oh, of course, that's how life works. Of course, that's how I've got to this place. Of course. So yeah, that's how I found it. And I think it's so funny, those two moments in my life, although the first awakening in 2012 wasn't a spiritual awakening, it really did put me on the path to being where I am now. And when I sold my first business in 2018, in 2017, I thought, I really want to help people in this way. I want to help people learn the law of attraction, master the law of attraction, and make it work for them, because there is such confusion out there. There is hurdles and blocks that maybe aren't spoken about. So yeah, I've been doing that ever since.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Emma. And yeah, some parts of your story also deeply resonate with me when you talked about the anxiety and depression and the panic attack. That's also part of my life experience. And I think it is so beautiful when we share this, or also being at a juncture in our life where we are thinking about, do I go on or is this it for me? Because I just can't take it anymore. For those out there who may be dealing with this, that there is always hope and it can always turn around. You are an embodiment of that. I consider myself an embodiment of that. So thank you for sharing. I think it's such a beautiful story. I saw it like a movie in my mind's eye. And what you just finished up with, manifestation is a powerful tool and it's also often misunderstood. How do you describe the true essence of manifestation to someone just starting on their journey?
Mm. So I like to see it as one of the 7 energetic laws of the universe. So we have the law of attraction, or it's known as the law of vibration in the 7 energetic laws, but it's essentially one of the 7 energetic laws of the universe. So I like to see it a bit like karma, like attracts. So how we turn up to the divine mirror of life is what is reflected back to us. So we've all had those experiences where one day something frustrating happens and we tell someone or we text our friend and be like, I can't believe this has happened. And then something else happens and something else happens. And at the end of the day, you're just like, I am so done. The day is over. Give me some wine. I'm done. And on the flip side, we have those days where something positive happens and we go and tell someone and we go and share it. And then something else happens and we get really excited. And by the end of the day, you think, wow, it's been my really lucky day. Like loads of cool things have happened today. And that is the law of attraction in action. So our words, our thoughts, our energy create our reality. I do believe, though, that energy trumps all. As much as our thoughts and our words do create our reality as well, I believe it's our prominent vibration and our energy that creates the experiences in our life. So there are so many amazing tools and resources out there to manifest, and I'll share some. I'm sure, like, if you know about the law of attraction, if you're listening to this, you'll probably know loads of modalities as well. And they all work, but it's finding the things that work for you and that resonate with you. And what is your manifesting superpower as well? Because a lot of the time, I see it time and time again where I'm like, let's write our goals down. And people are like, I don't want to do that, Emma. That does not bring me joy. That does not feel expansive. And it's really important you honor that, because every single one of us, like 8 billion people, are not going to all resonate with one tool and modality. Because if it was just that one tool modality that worked, then we wouldn't need all the books. We wouldn't need all the different people talking about it. We'd all be doing it, right? We'd all be manifesting everything that we want. But life is a little bit more complex than that. And we all have unique styles and tastes and preferences. And for me, I realized that visualization wasn't my strongest strength and that actually I found it quite boring sometimes. And I was like wandering off in thought, thinking, okay, I'm not even visualizing at all now. So for me, I realized that wasn't my strength, but writing was my strength. I loved scripting. I loved writing goals lists. So I realized that as an author, it makes sense that writing was my manifesting superpower. And also audio manifesting is another one of my manifesting superpowers. I love listening to subliminals. I love listening to meditations and things like that. So it's really finding what fits. And of course, the only way you know that is by trying these different things and seeing what feels good, what works for you, what maybe doesn't feel so expansive and fun. But yeah, the more fun you can have with it, setting those intentions by declaring them to the universe and knowing that we can co-create our reality, whether that's you want to manifest a car, a job, a relationship, a house, a holiday, money. But also we can manifest emotions too. There's a lot of focus on the materialistic side of things, but we can manifest healing. We can manifest peace, joy, whatever emotion you want to as well.
Absolutely. And I love so much that you shared all these different ways, that tools, practices that we can use to manifest, and that it's not one thing serves everyone. For me, visualization is not necessarily one of my strong suits for manifestation either. I love sigils. I love sigil work, for example. And talking about having fun with it, there's something that is so powerful and beautiful, and you can use its energy to focus on to whatever you're manifesting, and that is sexual energy. Pleasure is an incredible tool to use to charge up whatever you desire to manifest, as is laughter. Some people may like to use meditation. I love subliminals as well. But is there a particular track or maybe you yourself, is there something you absolutely love listening to?
Yeah, so I have a collection of them on my YouTube that you can go and listen to for completely free on my channel. I personally love See, I want to say the money ones because, of course, it's always fun when you receive money and you receive, because I think that's something very physical that we can see almost instantly of, oh, it works. But I sometimes like the lucky girl syndrome ones because it's a nice mix of just feeling expansive and up leveling. So I think those are the two that I tend to go to the most.
Wonderful. I shall do so this evening when I get relaxed and shed off the day. I look forward to it. And I truly believe that we are manifesting machines. We actually manifest something all of the time, but many of us are not even conscious of it. And so we have these superpowers and they're totally unfocused. So we end up, heard somebody else calling it, zapping ourselves all of the times with the things that we actually don't consciously at least want. Or when we just become aware of this. I remember years ago, I get so excited. I manifested a parking spot right around lunchtime in a really packed area of town. And so once we actually realize how vast and unlimited that is, it becomes such an incredible journey. However, I'm still on that path. I am still learning and practicing every day. What do you think are some of the biggest blocks to manifesting?
Mm. And I feel like there's probably so many examples I could give here, but I think it's identifying and knowing that there is a block. So in the second step of believe, in traditional teachings, it's very much spoken as believe you're worthy and deserving, believe the universe can serve it. And that's all still true, of course. But I feel like it goes so much deeper than that. It really goes into the subconscious world. It goes into the inner world, the mind, of what stands in between you and your desire. So for instance, when you set an intention of, I want to manifest £10,000 or I want to manifest, I don't know, like a new partner, for example, a loving relationship. After we set that intention, you might find that there's that inner critic, that ego popping up saying, who are you to do that? Or you're not worthy of that. And that inner critic, that ego, is the inner voice, which is projecting almost our limiting beliefs, fears, and even traumas. So I would look at, first of all, what resistance and blocks come up when you set those desires. It's normally the ones that we want really the most, that we have the most resistance to. If I was like, let's all manifest a free coffee, there might not be a lot of resistance to that. It could probably manifest quite easily for us. But if I was to say all of us are going to manifest £1 million, then a lot of us may think, whoa, okay, that's a really big manifestation. That's, oh my God, I've not done that before. And the resistance and the inner talk would then come up. So listen to what comes up when you focus on the manifestation that maybe feels a bit stuck or you've been waiting for it a while. See what regular thoughts and feelings come up. When you see someone manifest the very thing that you want, how do you feel? Does it make you feel more constrictive and anxious, or maybe even a bit jealous, or a bit like, oh, when's my turn? Or does it make you feel expansive and joyful and wow, if that can happen for that person, then oh my God, my desire is on its way. So it's looking at any emotional triggers that come up. It's looking at your emotions and any prominent things or patterns that come up around that specific belief or desire. But a lot of the time, I do find it comes down to self-worth. That feels like the one thing that I work on time and time again with people is around self-worth. Another block I see is actually not understanding the manifestation process. The 3 original steps of ask, believe, receive are all great, and I use them in my 5 steps still. But when I came to write my first book back in 2018, I realized there's way more to this than meets the eye. And I feel like the step from believe to receive feels like this whole big hurdle of, okay, I set my intention, I believe it's possible, whoa, it's here. And it's almost like there's this disconnect between that second and third step of what the heck happens in the middle, what happens in between. So that's why I created my 5 steps, to break that process down and to make it even more tangible and grounded for people to grasp onto and understand, because there is that middle period and people are like, what am I meant to be doing in that middle stage? So I believe the 3rd step is trust, and trusting that it's possible, trusting the process, trusting the timing of your life, and taking inspired, aligned action to meet the universe halfway and co-create, because it's a co-creation process. And step 4 is then letting go and surrendering. So that's probably one of the biggest steps that is missed out so much of manifesting, and has definitely been one of my biggest lessons over the years in terms of learning to let go and surrender. I definitely had never let go or surrendered a day in my life before learning about it. So I feel like letting go and surrendering is a big block. Trust is another block as well. Do you trust yourself? Do you trust the universe to deliver this? Do you trust that you can hold and sustain that manifestation? There's a lot, but I feel like those are the key ones that you can get started with.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing those, Emma. And such a key component is also what you've, just mentioned a minute ago, the limiting beliefs. And often those have been implanted in us when we were so young and had no intellectual or emotional capacity to dissect it or defend ourselves against it. It could be a simple thing such as it's your birthday and your parents are taking you somewhere to get you a gift, and you overhear them talking about money issues, right? They want to create a beautiful birthday for you, but you're trying to keep it from you, but you overhear it. They're worried about money. So what you really integrate then is that you receiving something good will hurt somebody, and especially somebody you love. So that may block your capacity to receive, right? So it's really interesting to do a deep dive into our childhood, especially when it's around receiving, when it's around money, when it's about love, right? Am I worthy, or what are the childhood models of what a relationship looks like? I found it very helpful to clear a lot of these things, and I'm still working on it. Yeah. You also, Emma, you've talked about redefining wealth and inviting abundance in all areas of life. So a big part of that for me is also gratitude. How do you practice gratitude in your daily life, and how has this shifted your perception of wealth?
Yeah, I feel like there's two parts to that. So when I wrote Positively Wealthy in 2020, I was going through a huge pivotal moment in my life. I was, again, leaving a not so great relationship for the third time. Even though I was aware of the law of attraction, that's when the inner work really came up. And I was like, oh, okay, this is not just a fun manifesting process where we just get everything we want. There is some inner work to it. So that was my awakening of the inner work at that point. But what I had come to realize in that moment was that before I'd broken up with that person, so everything was great at that point, when I started writing the book, I realized that I'd manifested every single thing off my vision board, but I felt totally unfulfilled. And the last manifestation, ironically, was selling my couponing business. That was the last thing off that vision board. And it was an incredible amount of money that was really going to give me so many great opportunities. It was going to help me buy a house one day and do really amazing stuff and give me an opportunity that not many people my age would have had at that time. And the money hit my account and I was like, great, transferred it out to the different things, investments, saving accounts, all the different places it was going to go. And within 10 minutes, my bank account, like my current account, was the same balance as it was 10 minutes prior. And I was like, oh, you really thought that money was going to make you feel different, didn't you? You really thought that was going to fulfill you. You really thought that all these things that you've manifested was going to fix that big gaping void within your chest. Oh, and obviously I was teaching manifestation. So I was like, oh my God, I'm this fraud. I'm a fake. I've gone along this journey and I feel so unfulfilled. But I wasn't. We can still manifest even with blocks, even with fears. We're always creating, as you said. But really, that was my moment of you've been chasing the wrong version of wealth. You thought that your version of wealth was money, career success, validation, which to some people, it might actually be. Everybody's different. Everybody has a different version of wealth. But for me, where I really wasn't wealthy was my personal life, was family, love. And I realized that was my version of wealth, and actually joy most prominently is my version of wealth. So that was like an awakening in itself of realizing, oh, you've been chasing all the wrong versions of your wealth. And now you have all of this amazing stuff. It's still not filled that void. It's still not given you what you thought it would give you. So it's knowing that your manifestation is not going to fill a void. Your manifestation is actually going to give you nothing. It will be an incredible addition to your life. It will be an incredible thing to experience, but you have to give yourself that first of all. So if you're manifesting love, for example, you need to be able to feel that love for yourself within yourself first before manifesting that aligned relationship. So we'll use my relationships as an example. Up until that point, even as I was going through that breakup as well, at that point in my life, I didn't know how to love myself. I was trying, I was learning about self-love, but it was only when I really did that deep inner work and shadow work that the real deep love came from that, and healing and unconditional love. But again, we don't know what we don't know, right? So it's not blaming yourself or shaming yourself for any of that, because I've been there. I've done it. I'm sure you have as well, Ariane. It happens. That's life. That is the journey. So definitely look at what your version of wealth is and look at what does wealth mean to me. But in terms of gratitude has always been that grounding foundation for me. Obviously, it's something that we learn about almost like straight away when we come across manifestation. We learn about gratitude practice and being thankful for what we receive. And obviously, what we give thanks for only multiplies. It creates more abundance and more joy in our life. But that's not why we should do it. I see it as a tool for getting into the present moment, for grounding myself back in and being grateful for all of the blessings that I have in my life already. Because if we can't be grateful for what we have, then how can we expect to receive more? I am very consistent with my gratitude practice, and I always joke about this because when I share pictures or I talk about my gratitude journal and it says like day 2273 on it or whatever it is now, people are like, oh my God, Emma, like, how have you done that? And I'm like, I've done it by giving myself a day off. If I miss a day, I'm not going back to zero. I'm on day 2000 at this point. Like, I'm not going back. But I give myself permission to have a day off. So that practice for me is perfect. Even though I've done it for 2273 days or whatever it is, I allow myself to be imperfect with it. Allow myself to have a day off. I allow it to be my practice and work for me. So for me, I write 3 to 5 things down in my gratitude journal every morning as soon as I wake up or as close to, because that really sets me up for success for the day. It allows me to ground in. It allows me to go into my morning gently and spend the first 20 minutes away from my phone and doing something positive. And it really just impacts my energy and vibration for the day and sets me up in a positive, grateful mindset, which only attracts more of those experiences throughout the day. And then in the evening, I will do just like a mini practice just in my head. I don't write it down. And I'll just go throughout the day and think of all the good things that have happened, all the things that have made me smile, and all the things that I want to give thanks for. So I'll just, in my mind, give thanks for those things that have happened throughout the day. And what that does is it creates this ripple effect, this momentum where I'm going to sleep releasing any stresses from the day. I'm going to sleep so much quicker because I'm going to sleep with that grateful mindset. And then I'm waking up feeling grateful because that was the last thing I did before I went to sleep. And then I'm setting myself up for the day by writing that gratitude out. But if you can't write it down, everybody's lifestyles are different. I hear you, I see you. You could say it in your mind. You could say it out loud. You could voice note it to someone. My friend has a little WhatsApp group with his friends and they voice note their gratitude in there each day. So there's so many ways you can do it. But I just find that it's an amazing practice to do to help bring you back into the present moment.
And this is beautiful, Emma, and beautiful on so many different levels. What I particularly love is that you don't let perfection, quote, stand in the way of progress. Oftentimes when we have this ideal of perfection, we don't even go for something because we are so afraid of failing. Guess what? Nothing will happen then. If you don't ever try, nothing will happen. That's for sure. Also, purely on a neuroscientific level, also when we prime our brain to see, to acknowledge all the good, all the positive things, it will automatically look for more of that, perceive more of that, perceive different opportunities that otherwise it might be closed to, right? When you're in a state of gratitude, no, of course, this always happens to me. This was so horrible. This was so horrible. Your brain has a tunnel vision. It won't even see positive alternative opportunities anymore. Something that really fascinates me is the intersection of quantum physics and manifestation. Now, quantum physics suggests that the observer plays a crucial role in the reality that is observed. And I'd love to know from you, Emma, how do you see the principles of quantum mechanics reflecting in the process of manifestation? And what implications does that have for our understanding of creating our reality?
Yeah. So I'm always like more of the spiritual side of manifestation. Like, I love quantum physics. I love learning about it. I love learning about quantum leaping and all of this good stuff. But I'm probably not the most expert on it. I will say that first of all. But in terms of how I bring that into my practice and working with the quantum realm in terms of manifestation, I think it flows into so much of spiritual concepts as well, whether that's you believe in your aura, your energy field, you believe in magnetizing things through energy. To me, it's all one of the same things. So I think sometimes it can maybe feel a bit daunting for people when they're like, quantum physics, quantum realm, quantum leaping, like, what is all of this? So if you're into that, go for it. But I find a lot of the time, especially at the beginning of people's journeys, that can feel quite overwhelming. But how I see it is that absolutely we can tap into that quantum realm and we can align things with us. I use an example here of I had a psychic reading a couple of years ago with one of my good friends. And she always says to me, Emma, I never want to give you time frames with anything, because she said, you're the type of person that could magnetize something to them tomorrow. And I could say a year, whereas other people she reads, she could say a year and it really would be a year. So when we're in that driver's seat of manifestation and we're consciously creating, we are becoming that magnet. We are magnetizing those things to us. So yeah, time can absolutely collapse. In energy, time doesn't exist as we know in the universe. So we are the only time that we put on ourselves. So when we can look past times and timelines and distance and our desire being over there and we're over here, when we actually see it as it's all interconnected and that actually there is a version of ourselves who is already experiencing that reality. And all we have to do is tap into them. That's it. We just have to align with that version of ourselves. The acting as if process that a lot of people are talking about, it's a fantastic process and it's needed. But I think sometimes people think that they almost have to have a whole personality transplant to become that version of themselves and embody the version of themselves. Whereas actually, I like to describe it a bit like a radio, where you're in the car and you put the radio on and maybe the news is on or an advert or a song that you really don't like, and you change the station and then your favorite song comes on, you're singing away, life feels good, and oh my God, your energy is totally lifted from hearing that favorite song that you know all the words to. And that is that alignment and embodiment process of just fine-tuning the frequency and the energy to hit that sweet spot of where you want to be, of that timeline you want to be on. So absolutely, we have the capability and abilities to tap into that energy of the version of yourself that has that relationship you want, the version of yourself who gets the promotion at work. So it's tapping it. I'm a Virgo, so I love to keep things practical, but I love tapping into that through embodiment practices, through practicality of, okay, what is that version of myself doing each day? Am I doing that now, for example? And a good example of this, and I would encourage everybody listening to do this, was one of my lovely clients, Jessica. We'd gone through like the inner work, we'd gone through everything with her desire to get this specific acting role. And she said to me, what else can we do? And I was like, this is all about embodiment now. This is not about doing, this is about receiving. So I said to her, when you think about that version of yourself who has that dream acting role, what is she doing every day? And she said to me, she sat on the balcony of my London flat that I have at the moment. She's in this really nice floral dress and she's drinking a cup of coffee in the morning. And I was like, great, do that every day. Now you may think, how does drinking a cup of coffee on the balcony in a dress relate to her manifesting that dream acting role? But in her mind and her subconscious, that was the visual representation of the version of herself living that desire. So she did it every day for 5 days and then emailed me on that 5th day saying, you are not going to believe this. I've manifested the exact role I wanted. So I think oftentimes we get in our heads of what action can I take that aligns me with my desire, when actually the dress, the coffee had nothing to do with acting, but that was that energy representation for her of that version of herself, which she tapped into through the quantum realm, leaping into that reality.
Yes. And it is about becoming the energetic match for that which we desire to manifest, because what we are manifesting is also manifesting us. And so whatever will get us into energetic alignment, in her case, it was this beautiful vision of herself drinking a coffee in a floral dress. That's exactly what we use and trust that process. Speaking about energetically aligning, something that's I find really important is emotions. Emotions, of course, carry vibrational frequencies that can attract similar frequencies. How do our different emotional states affect our ability to manifest? And how can we cultivate emotional frequencies that align with our desires?
Mm. That practice I gave before with Jessica is a great way to start it. So visualize yourself just like she did. If we'll use an example here of if your biggest desire that you really wanted to manifest was an acting role, you'd visualize yourself. What does that version of yourself look like? What are they wearing? Where are they? And what feelings and emotions are they feeling? So Jessica probably tapped into that and was maybe feeling peace or joy or ease. So then that was then her job to embody those emotions here and now. And I think people love a good practice, especially in manifestation. They're like, Emma, how can I do more rituals? How can I do more practices? How can I do more affirmations? How can I do more this? And I think we focus too much on the doing instead of being. And actually, the more that I go along my manifestation journey, because believe me, I am still evolving, still learning, just like all of us, it never stops. I've come to realize that actually it really is about the energy and emotions. And actually the alignment process can really supercharge that process for us of the manifestation journey by tapping into those key emotions. Because you could sit there and do all the affirmations and all the visualization and meditating and subliminals and get absolutely no closer to your desire if you're not feeling the emotions and feelings and frequency and energy that the version of yourself who has that desire is feeling. So if they're feeling joy and peace and happiness, but you're not an embodiment of that now, you're not aligning. That radio station's not quite finding that right frequency. Whereas actually, when we can identify, money's always a great one to use here. If you've had the money to pay that bill, you're not going to be feeling anxious and worried and stressed all the time. You're going to be feeling relaxed, easy, trusting. So it's being able to tap into the reality, the outcome that you want, but embodying and almost working backwards by saying, how can I embody that here and now? So feelings and emotions are so important. We know feeling is healing. It's important that we process our emotions and feelings. But ultimately as well, we need to be able to tap into those feelings and emotions of our desired outcome here and now. And how you do that is through obviously great practices, like I've just said. What are the emotions? How are you feeling? Where are you? Do a practice a bit like Jessica did with her desire. And then really cultivating that. So almost working backwards of, okay, if I'm feeling happiness as the end result, what is stopping me from feeling happiness now? And that might mean that you need to go back to that second step of belief and maybe work through some limiting beliefs, fears, blocks that are stopping that happiness from flowing to you and experiencing that joy or happiness or whatever the word is here and now. So I like to you always have to go to the end goal of, okay, what are they feeling? What are they experiencing? And then how do I embody that here and now? Another thing, which is a really great idea to do, is think about if you had that relationship, if you had that job, what is one thing that version of yourself is doing each day that you don't do currently? And do that thing this week. Because the more that you start to build in the practical, physical realm, you start to energetically bring it to you as well. Yeah, I would say those things are where I would start with it.
Yes, and I particularly like the latter because my question was also geared towards people. I don't know anything about Jessica. I'm just assuming her life is pretty okay, especially since she has you also as a manifestation teacher. For people who are in a place in their lives where they're just really not feeling good at all, right? They may be anxious and depressed. They may have real significant worries, how to pay the rent, or may deal with illness or something of the likes, or loss. So things that really can very strongly impact us. So when we are in a situation like that, what tools can help us shift our emotional state? So I really like to bring these practical shifts into how does this version of you do certain things in a daily life. I find in order to achieve a state change, that often is necessary before being able to go into manifestation, there's certain practices I found helpful that literally sometimes it can be as simple as doing 15 jumping jacks if you're able to. It will literally cause a state change, or certain breathing to calm your nervous system, maybe even cold exposure, take a really cold shower. Is there anything from what you've learned via your work with clients or people that connect with you via your books and courses, or that you do yourself, that is a tool you could share in addition to what you already shared, Emma?
Yeah. So what you said there was great around regulating your nervous system, because when we're in that flight or fight state, or shock state, we're really in that survival mode. And the survival mode is not that open, energetic receiver. Of course, we're always receiving, so you will still manifest things. But for me, as you can imagine, having anxiety and depression and later being diagnosed with PTSD, I didn't know what a regulated nervous system was. I'd never experienced it. So I was always manifesting from dysregulation and through the stress, which obviously gave me certain outcomes. And I was never feeling that fulfillment and peace until I addressed that. So definitely regulating your nervous system and feeling safe in your body is so important, especially when it comes to manifestation, because bringing it back to that trust. Do you trust yourself to hold that manifestation? Do you trust yourself to sustain that manifestation? Does it feel safe for you to receive your desire? That can actually be such a big block in itself. So things like breath work are great, meditation. I love meditation, cold exposure as well. I love that when I'm feeling brave. Things like yoga, that's really helped me as well to regulate. That's something I still do very often now to regulate and to help my cortisol and just keep myself feeling good. So yoga, breathwork, meditation, but gratitude, we've spoken about it before, but actually gratitude's a great regulation tool to really just ground you in. Grounding is really important, especially when you're in that anxious place or stressed state. Even just imagining roots coming out of your feet through your mind's eye with your eyes closed, imagining big brown roots, tree roots coming out of your feet and going into the earth and grounding into the center of the earth can be, sometimes that's all you need. But I like to call upon spiritual support as well. There's obviously very physical things you can do, like we've shared, but even just calling upon your angels or spirit guide team to hold you or support you or to give you some clarity, like there's that spiritual support there as well.
Thank you, Emma, for that. Yes, and this is just to also give those who'd like a little bit of a support and head start when they don't know how to even get themselves into the frequency to manifest. There's tons of wonderful tools there, and just because you're stuck in a certain state doesn't mean you have to stay there. Something really beautiful that I have found occurs during the manifesting process is what the concept that Carl Jung actually introduced, the concept of synchronicity, the meaningful coincidences, that let's call them coincidences, that occur in our lives. And I'd like to hear your perspective, Emma, on how you interpret the synchronicities that arise during the manifestation process and how they may actually guide us on our path.
Yes, you might find when you set these intentions, or maybe if you aren't too into manifestation, but maybe you've been aware of spirituality for a while, that maybe you're seeing white feathers appear places, or ladybugs, tons of ladybugs out of nowhere, or frogs. I saw frogs on my walk the other day, tons of them. And I was like, okay, that's definitely a sign from the universe, because I never see frogs on my dog walk. Or maybe you're seeing repeating numbers like 1111, 777, 222. There's lots of ways the universe communicates with us. And I personally like to just let them flow. Sometimes, of course, we're all human. We want a sign or synchronicity to know that we're on the right path, or know that something's for us, or that something's on the way. So it's perfectly okay to ask for signs and synchronicities like that to help and guide us and support us. But it's when we use them as an emotional crutch is where my sticking point is with it. And I have definitely used them as an emotional crutch over the years. I see it all the time in my Facebook group. I used to be this person as well, where I was like, I asked for one sign if something was going to happen and another sign if it's not going to happen. And I saw both. So what does it mean? And I've also asked for a pink elephant and I've seen it 20 times, but I still can't believe that I'm going to manifest the outcome, even though I've seen this pink elephant 20 times. use signs and synchronicities as a helpful support and just a nice surprise. Let the universe communicate with you. It doesn't have to be forced. It doesn't have to be controlled. But when we're using signs and synchronicities and almost holding the universe to ransom with, you better show me that pink butterfly, otherwise, like, universe, that's where the problems occur. So if you're using it as a form of validation and an emotional crutch, when the belief isn't, that's the problem. So no matter how many pink elephants, no matter how many white butterflies, if you don't believe at your core, at your foundation, that you can manifest that or that it's yours, no amount of animals and no amount of numbers are going to give you that solid trust, belief, faith, or peace. So you have to give that to yourself. So if you have a healthy relationship with signs and synchronicities and it's fun and expansive to see them, great. But if you are finding that you're using them to hold the universe to ransom and be like, is this going to happen? Tell me it's going to happen, universe. You have to believe that in your core, because the universe can't give you that validation.
Thank you for pointing that out, Emma. It also reminds me of one of my favorite movies, The Matrix, the scene where Neo is with Morpheus, and Morpheus basically tells him to jump, right, off this huge skyscraper. And Neo doesn't believe him. Of course, he falls. And once he believes, he actually takes off. He soars. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's such a profoundly important thing to also work on our trust, on our belief. Yeah. To circle back to Carl Gustav Jung, who I adore him, he actually proposed a theory of the collective unconscious, which suggests that we are all connected by shared myths, archetypes, and memories. So something that I'm really curious about is, how does our connection to the collective unconscious actually influence our ability to manifest? And can we use this collective power to enhance our manifesting abilities?
Yeah, definitely. And I think in a lot of spiritual texts, there's a lot of talk of we're all connected, we are one. There's a lot of theories out there that bring this connectedness together. And I think the beauty of manifestation is that it's not just about us. I think it's very much sold in that way of, get what you want. You can have everything. Oh my God, I can have all this stuff. When actually it's about, how can we expand it to more than us? How can we use manifestation to help the collective, to impact the collective? So when I set intentions now, I ask myself and I say, how is this positively going to impact the collective? Like, how is me manifesting that money or whatever it is, that house or whatever? How is that going to positively impact the collective? Because then we take it so much more deeper than just, what can I get out of this? It's what can we all experience from all of us creating more abundance, more happiness, more joy, more money, whatever it is. So I think it's really important that we do definitely think about that and ask ourselves that question, because then when we can connect it to something far greater than just ourselves, it becomes more believable, but also it's more selfless at that point. It's not just like, I'm getting all this stuff. It's actually, I'm contributing to the collective as well and sharing that wonderful abundance and energy with everybody. But it's a different side to that. It's how we can use the collective to also build our level of belief as well. So, for instance, when someone manifests something that you want, it's very easy for us to be like, oh, it always happens for everybody else. When's it my turn? Or why can't I experience that? Universe, I've been working so hard. I want to experience that. And even if we're really honestly happy for our friend or our peer or whoever it is, we can still be genuinely happy for someone, but feel that, I wish that was me, or I wish that I could have that, because we're human. We all feel those emotions. But I like to see those as opportunities. So when I see someone, whether I know them or I don't, and they're manifesting something that I want or that's something that I would aspire to, I'm like, wow, thank you for showing me that's possible, universe. Because if they can manifest it through the law of oneness, that means I could attract that to myself as well. So actually, if I'm around people who are attracting that and have that in their reality, I must be close then, because if it wasn't a vibrational match, I wouldn't be seeing that. That wouldn't be around me. So I think it's switching that narrative and that script to saying, oh, people around me are manifesting the things that I want. because I'm close to it, not because the universe wants to taunt me or test me or anything like that, because I don't believe the universe tests us at all. It's all just energy. It's all just how we're responding to things. I think that answers your question, but that's how I would see it.
Yeah, I love that, Emma. Also, it reminds me of something. We're all just human. To feel envy or jealousy may be it is a normal thing. What matters is what do we do with it. And I think this is also a great place to actually ask questions about our culture, because different cultures have different understandings and deal differently with certain emotions. Now, not every single person within a culture, but there may be a broader cultural, quote, agreement on how to deal with certain things. I'm thinking about, I'm German born. I didn't grow up there. I grew up in, some of the audience may know throughout following this podcast, I grew up in West Africa and India and Spain and the United States, also in Germany. So I may not have imbibed what I'm going to talk about because I didn't grow up in the cultural surroundings, but I've experienced it living in Germany. So there is actually in I think it's in Ukraine even. I once heard one of the Klitschko brothers talk about Vitaly and Vladimir Klitschko, former professional heavyweight boxers and champions, and Vitaly Klitschko, of course, being heavily involved in politics now in Ukraine. So just segue. So I heard one of the brothers, this is probably decades ago, talk about the concept of white jealousy and black jealousy. Now, the white jealousy would be like, this person has something that I also really want. Good for them. And how did they achieve that? I want to learn how this is possible. The black jealousy is like, this person has something that I want. Screw them. And I'm going to try to even take or destroy the thing that they have that I desire from them. Germany, in my opinion, at least back in the day, maybe now a lot of younger generations coming in and being exposed to all kinds of different cultures and learning, obviously also via the social media networks. Maybe it's changed, but Germany I always found to have a heavy influence of this black jealousy. It was literally, I remember times where friends who would have, we're not even talking about, I don't know, Bentleys or super expensive BMWs or other, but people who just would have nice middle class considered cars. And if they didn't have a parking garage, which can often happen in a city like Berlin, you park your car in the streets, they would not be surprised to find their car scratched, right? A manifestation of the black jealousy. So I think this shifting our perception and how we react to certain things is vital, right? If we want to have something, to operate from the abundance and not of the scarcity. Oh, somebody else has it, so it's not there for me. No, somebody else has it. Wow, that's also possible for me. Let's find out how.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that popped to my mind thinking about manifestation is neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity shows us that the brain can rewire itself based on our thoughts and also our experiences. So I am currently also really focused on and tinkering with how we can leverage neuroplasticity in the process of manifestation and what practices can help us reprogram our minds to support our manifesting abilities.
And I love neuroplasticity because it's something that I only really came across the term a couple of years ago. I've spoken about limiting beliefs, fears for years. So I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So it was great to learn about it and dive into that more. But the great thing about neuroplasticity is that up until our last breath, we can rewire our thoughts, our patterns, our beliefs. That is the beauty of it. So no matter how young you experience something or how long you've had that limiting belief or fear or trigger, we can absolutely rewire it, release it, and desensitize it, which is fantastic because then it means we can literally find freedom from the past. We can move forwards from hardships or maybe even trauma that's happened at a young age or throughout our adulthood. So no matter what age something happens, we can absolutely desensitize that, release that, and form new neural pathways that are positive and obviously of the desired outcome and beliefs that we want. So in terms of identifying, that's why I wrote Hurt, Healing, Healed. It is a bit of a process, But essentially, it's identifying what is the core root or block. So what is the limiting belief and fear at the core? So to give you an example, you might, for instance, have body image issues, and you might find that you speak negatively about your body, and you might have some statements of, I'm not worthy and deserving of love, for example. And then when you get to the root of that, and we dive into it through the practices in the book, you then might discover that belief came from a conversation with someone in the school ground at 5 years old, and they said something and that stuck in your mind. And then you told yourself, I'm not worthy and deserving of love. So very often we might think we know the starting point, or we might think it's definitely that. But I found over the years, going through this work myself and with clients and writing the book, that actually sometimes what we think is at the core of that isn't always the expected memory or belief or starting point from that. So it's really interesting when you dive into those patterns and go right back to the beginning of when that was first formed, what that moment was or where that came from. So from the ages of 0 to 7, our minds are like a sponge. We're saying yes to everything. So yes to how we observe love in our parents and caregivers and grandparents and families' relationships. We're saying yes to how love is, yes to how money works, yes to how life works. And through obviously our school years and through our family and caregivers, we are creating those identities and those beliefs. And obviously they can be created much later. We create beliefs throughout all of our life, but it tends to be those core patterns, beliefs, and identities formed from that 0 to 7 year age. And then from that 7-year age onwards, we're then going out into the world and we're saying, this is who I am with my money beliefs, my love beliefs, everything beliefs. So we can absolutely rewire that. And I find it so fascinating what tools and modalities we can use for that. Now, I love more of the spiritual approach. Obviously, I love the practical and cognitive and body side of things as well, because it is a mind-body experience, spirit experience. We have to integrate all three. When we're looking at the mind, yes, the cognitive is important and there are great things we can do with that, but it's also integrating the body and the spirit into things as well, because healing, it's not enough to just sit on a meditation mat and expect it to go away. It's not enough to just do the cognitive work and journaling, or you might do even some deeper therapies like EMDR, for example, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. But again, if we're not moving it through our body, through breath work, for example, or movement, or yoga, or womb work, or there's tons I could give you there, is that 3-pillar experience of mind, body, spirit. So the first place I would suggest people start is a great tool that I share in the book of thinking about your desire. Think about the one thing that you really want to manifest more than anything, because that normally holds the core resistance and the core belief. And say to yourself, or hear me say this now as you tune into this on the podcast, your manifestation is not going to happen. And see where in your body you feel that. Did you feel a sensation or a twinge or a pain or a heat? Maybe in a chakra point, maybe in a random place on your body. And then tune into that place that you felt it in your body and ask yourself, what is underneath this? And then you might hear a little voice saying, I'm scared, or I don't feel worthy and deserving. And then you can dive into that and say, right, what key emotions or feelings is part of this? And then you might have loss, sadness, fear come up, and do sit with it. Pause this, journal it down, write down what comes up for you. And then you can say, when was the first time that I felt this? And you might have a memory instantly come to mind. You might have a number, an age come to mind. You might just have a feeling. So everybody's different. And of course, people see things differently. People are more visual people. Sometimes people are more audio people. So don't panic if you can't see everything right from the get-go, but just being able to identify those core feelings gives you a starting point to then work on, how can I start to release this? And then through the healing part of the book, Healing Healed, I guide you through tons of amazing tools and modalities that you can use to release and rewire that pattern.
Excellent. Thank you so much for this, Emma. And those who want to do a deeper dive, do get Emma's book. And the tools that you provide via your work, via your books, also the content you create, Emma, you're so helpful to so many to actually have breakthroughs and get into flow with manifestation. So talking about all the things we can do in order to really step into the power of our manifestation, I also think manifestation brings with it a certain level of responsibility, the ethical dimensions of manifestations, so to say. How do we navigate the ethical implications of manifesting and ensure that our desires do not inadvertently harm others?
And it's a great question because I think a lot of people have that idea of, is it greedy to ask for this? Like, when's enough? When do I stop? When do I have enough? So I think we all have that moral dilemma and question, of course, along the manifesting journey. And it's good that we think like that as well, because it shows we are being responsible and thinking like, okay, how does my impact of manifestation, how does that impact the collective? How does that impact other people? So in terms of making sure that it's not impacting other people negatively, I always say when you set your desires, say this or something better for the highest good of all, because we think we know what's best for us. And I can tell you over the years, I definitely have not known what's best for me. And I'm so glad the universe has protected me and I've dodged bullets, and the universe says, we know what's right for you, Emma. You may not be able to see it from your perspective, but from this bird's eye perspective, we can see what the most aligned outcome for you is. So it's trusting in that. It's trusting that whatever is happening for us is for our highest good, but for the highest good of other people as well. And of course, we can manifest for other people within some reason as well. If someone's going through a particularly hard time, obviously we know about prayer and how people often pray for people. Manifestation is very similar in that you could set an intention for the highest good of all. Very important to say, because we don't want to be manifesting things into people's lives that would cause them more harm than good. And we don't always know what's best for other people as well. So you can, of course, set intentions. And if that is for the highest good of all, then of course that will positively impact that person. So yeah, that's always a good thing, a good protocol, I say, to repeat that when you're setting your intention. But again, like when you're setting intentions, if you're feeling like, oh, am I just manifesting this for the sake of it? Am I being greedy? Do I really need this? You're going to know within yourself if it feels in alignment or not. Is that goal your goal? Is it your true version of wealth? Or are you manifesting it because someone on Instagram told you to manifest it? Or they've got it and you're like, oh, I want that as well. Are your goals in alignment with you? Are they in alignment with your soul, your truth? Do they feel good to you? Or are you just manifesting it for whatever reason? It has to feel in alignment with you and feel good to you. So those are the things I would say to watch out for.
Beautiful closing words, Emma. Thank you so much for this enlightening and inspiring conversation. For people who would like to learn more about you, connect with you, work with you, how do they find you?
Of course. So you can find me at I am Emma Mumford on pretty much every social platform. I'm there: YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and also you can find everything that I do and my books at emmamumford.co.uk.
Super. Thank you so much for your time, dear Emma. It was a true pleasure.
Thank you so much. It's been so much fun.